Good afternoon, and I'm delighted you've joined me this afternoon. A beautiful, beautiful afternoon here on the Costa del Sol. We pray now the rains have gone. Well, we've got a lashing of rain. I think that's enough for the moment. A little bit more maybe to make sure our reservoirs are full. Everything is so green here. And if you're planning to come down here, please join us. It really is very beautiful. I've been out with clients today and driving all the way down to Manilva, Sota Grande, all along the Costa. It's absolutely beautiful. And the weather is what we would call idyllic, because sometimes in the summer it gets a wee bit hot. Anyway, you're very, very welcome. I'm delighted, as I say, you've joined me. Today I'm going to do something that I suppose in all our lives we have a little bit of embarrassment. This is my Morris's embarrassing moments. Will that do you? Morris's embarrassing moments. Let me tell you the first one. I used to have a Mercedes E. Now, I like Mercedes. As you know, I've had them for a few years, different models of Mercedes. But this was a Mercedes E. That was a good few years ago. I just bought it. It was 1 year old. 1 year old. And it was Mercedes, Mercedes sample car, whatever, for people to use or whatever. It hardly any miles on it or kilometres on it. It was as new. And I had it about 3, 4, 5 years. I love that car. It was a super car. And one day I was doing a radio interview with a gentleman who owns one of these, repair spray shops, for whatever, for your motor car. You want to, if you've had an accident or something. They also took some old vintage cars and did them up. They were renowned, very good. And I was talking to him about vintage cars and doing them up, etc. And he said to me, on air, he said, "Why don't you give me your Mercedes? I've had it about 5 or 6 years, and I'm sure there's a few scratches on the body, and I'll show you what we can do." Well, I was delighted with this. This sort of spray, paintwork and everything, spraying cars, and it's an expensive thing, and here he's offering to do it for me. So I handed over my Merc to him. As I said, it was sort of a metallic dark blue. It was a lovely car with grey interior leather. Really, honestly, it was a lovely car. Anyway, about a week later, he called me and he said to me, the car is ready. So I went to collect it. Now, I swear to you, this car was like it's just come out of the showrooms. It's 6, 7 years old, but just like it came out of the showrooms. Not only did he do the exterior, but all the leather had been redone, but had been cleansed. It was a new car. Put it that way, except maybe the engine. But I'm just talking about the look, like new. And I was really proud of it. So driving home, my wife called me and said, could I pop into the supermarket to pick up, I don't know what she wanted. So anyway, luckily I was in that area, so I drove in. It had this particular supermarket, for people know, it's called Carrefour in Estepona. It's a very large car park. So I parked a distance away from the supermarket in a place there's no cars around me. Oh, I didn't want to scratch in this car again. No. I wanted to keep it at least for a year or whatever, not have it damaged. Anyway, I went to the supermarket picking up some stuff, and I bumped into an old friend of mine I hadn't seen for a while. He said, "Why don't we have a coffee?" So I said, "That's brilliant." So we stopped and we had a coffee. I think I must have been there an hour, maybe an hour and a bit. You know me, chat. And I came out, and I actually, the car park was now full. From what I remember, it was around 5 o'clock in the evening. The car park was pretty well full. And I knew where my car was because of a big, huge, empty part. So I walked around, I found it. And as I went to get in to the door, there's a huge white scratch down the door. Huge white scratch down the door. And it so happens next to my car is a white van, a little van, white. Oh, jeez. I tell you, I went into a deep depression. My beautiful car now it's been damaged. damaged vehicle, damaged goods. So I went back into the store quickly, and I picked up a duster. And in Carrefour they have a car section. I picked up a duster and a polish. Okay, and I came back to see if I get the scratch out. So I got down on my knees at the door, and I started praying, rubbing the scratch, polish, rubbing the scratch, the scratch. A bit of paint was coming off, but the scratch still was very prominent. I just didn't know what to do. I was going mad, and I wasn't in a very good mood when someone tapped me on the shoulder. And he goes, "¿Qué pasa?" I think that's the right pronunciation. Like, "What's up, mate?" And I said, "Yeah, some bastard." I looked at the white van beside me, thinking that was him. "Some bastard. Look what he's done to my car." He said, "Your car?" I said, "Yes, my car." "Whose car do you think it is?" I wasn't in a good mood. He said, "It's my car." The Spanish guy spoke excellently. "It's my car." "What do you mean your car?" So I stood up, because remember, I'm on my knees. I stood up and I looked into the car, but instead of beautiful grey leather interior, it's black. It wasn't my car. My car was parked on the next row, but it was disguised by another car in the front, so I didn't see it. But it was the exact same colour as my car. Talk about being embarrassed. Can you imagine when that guy goes home and saying to his wife, "Geez, I met some mad Irishman. He's on his knees polishing my car." Anyway, I apologised profusely. And, talk about an embarrassing moment. That certainly is. Here's another one, which was quite embarrassing. I used to go over to London every Thursday night to record my TV show on Sky every Friday. We'd record 4 shows on a Friday, okay? So we'd go out, that's 1 month's worth of shows, 1-hour shows on a Friday. Anyway, I remember this particular Friday, we finished the show earlier than normal. We used to do the 4 shows before 5 o'clock, then the studios would go into overtime. It's all technical stuff, costing more money or something. I don't know. But it was now like 4:30, 4:45. And the studio driver came to me, normally picks me up in the hotel and brings me there to the studio. We arrived at about 7 in the morning in the studio, and the first show was shot at 9 in the morning. The first guests would come in. So he said to me, "Maurice," because normally then on Saturday morning I fly back to Malaga, to Marbella. And he said, "There's a flight leaving Heathrow this evening at 8. Would you like to take that?" I said, "I'd love to. Can we do that?" And he said, "Yeah, just double check with the office now." And he came back and said, "Everything's arranged." He said, "We better go quick because there's going to be traffic at this time, etc., etc." So I jumped in the car really quickly, wearing the same clothes, because when you're shooting 4 different shows in one day, obviously you've got to change your clothes because, put on different jackets, whatever. Anyway, jumped in the car and boom, we go to the airport, and we arrived, I think, an hour before takeoff. I don't know. We were tight on time, and I ran to the ticket desk. That he came with me, and everything was fine. And then that queue that go into departures, up and down, up and down, up and down, and everybody's sort of looking at me, and I thought, That's pretty cool. That's very, I was sort of giving the big star. I swear to you, everybody, I don't know, 100 people in that queue going up and they're looking at me. Anyway, I got into departures. I wanted to go quickly into the men's room, to the toilet, and I went in and looked in the mirror. I washed did what I had to, washed my hand, looked up at the mirror. Honest to God, I was a sight to behold. There was black mascara all the way down my face. I was like one of those clowns. What happened was, normally after my show, I go into makeup and all the stuff is taken off. But because we were in a hurry, I didn't do it. But I didn't think what's the difference? I'd do it in the plane or do it in the airport. But this black mascara, I don't know how or why, but it had run down my cheeks. I don't know what people must have thought I was, some sort of monster. It was embarrassing at the time, and that was another Morris embarrassing moments. It certainly was. The other one. The other one was, well, we got a few of them. Let me just have a look at this. Yeah, it was on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, I was asked by Age Concern, would I sponsor their Christmas lunch, their Christmas dinner? And I said I would. And Barry Hands was the man arranging all this. He said, would you come on Christmas Day and just say a few words to the Age Concern who are having the Christmas lunch, which you sponsored? It was no big deal. I think we bought 4 or 5 turkeys, potatoes, etc. And it was at the International Club Estepona. And I went down because I do a show every Christmas for years called I used to do it, called Wish You Were Here. It was a great favourite on the Costa because what would happen? People would send me in faxes, I suppose now emails, but send me in messages to phone me mammy or say phone me uncle or phone me brother or me sister or whatever it might be. I talk about being embarrassed. When people phone up and say or text me or WhatsApp me or fax me and say phone my mummy in Los Angeles, I say, well, I'm sorry to say it's probably about 2 a.m. there. Is that okay? Oh, no, she'll love it. She'll be loving it. I remember phoning up some house and some man answered the phone. He sounded like he was sleeping. Go, hello? And I say, hi, it's Good News Radio here. Who the hell are you? He starts screaming down the phone. No, I am sending messages to your wife from, I don't care who you are. Who do you think you are phoning up this hour of the morning? You certainly mad. And I left all the bad language out there and that. And anyway, he put the phone, but that's not it. Anyway, I left the show straight afterwards because I had to get home because Wendy's always complaining I get home late because the kids want to open the yeah, I know I'm Jewish, but we loved Christmas. We love Christmas trees. We love opening the presents, etc., etc. Would I share that? Anyway, I won't share the joke. So anyway, I went down to the International Club, whatever it's called, in Estepona, and it was packed with people. And Barry Hands announced me, saying, here's Morris, and he's sponsored the show, REM sponsored the Christmas dinner, and everybody clapped, and it was very nice. And I saw a woman in a wheelchair, and she was clapping frantically as if Elvis had just arrived. So I'd pop down at least and see her. She was in a wheelchair and just wish her happy Christmas. And I went down and she was clapping away. Even when I arrived, she was still clapping like mad. I said, hi, how are you? And she said, very well. And I said, just as a matter of interest, do you know who I am? And she said, no, dear, but if you ask Matron, she'll tell you. Talk about being embarrassed. Anyway, that's another Morris embarrassing moment. Here's quite an embarrassing one, and it was very rude, and it wasn't pleasant at all. I was in Las Vegas doing my show in Caesar's Palace Hotel. I used to go there once a year and broadcast live from Caesar's Palace Hotel in Las Vegas as a guest of theirs and broadcast back here. And I've gone through the shows before. We'd have people like Paul Anka, Gladys Knight, some great names, Evel Knievel, Buddy Greco, The Temptations. But this particular year, this particular time, Martha Reeves. I wonder if the person who produced my show is listening to this now. He'll be quite embarrassed. Martha Reeves was my guest. You remember Martha Reeves and the Vandellas dancing in the streets? Talk about an embarrassing moment. I'd like to hear this. So one of the things we did every year is the engineers wired up one of the slot machines, and we did the show for 5 days, and every day we gave a prize. We asked a question. I can't remember what the question was, and the winner that particular day would get $3. And those $3 would be put in the slot machine in their name, live on air, and we'd pull the handle. And if they hit the jackpot, it's $25,000. And this particular day, we were doing that very thing. And after that, see, I had headphones on. There were the had a little aerial on it. I'm walking back to what was the studio because in Caesar's Palace they set up the studio in one of the bars that are open at night. And this is one of my, I remember we set up the studio in Cleopatra's barge. Right in the middle of Caesar's Palace, there's a barge on water and it actually rocks. I was beginning to feel a bit wheezy when I did that particular show. But back to this show with Martha Reeves. I hadn't met her yet. So anyway, I'm walking back to the studio and my producer came to me and said to me, through my ear, said to me, Morris, and gave me a message. I said, look, I'm not going to give his name. Look, Frank, that's not his name. Look, Frank, I've got to go. Martha Reeves is sitting there waiting for him in a hurry. And he says, well, F the N. He called it the N word. I was mortified and only too happy that no one heard it. This was off air. He used the N word describing Martha Reeves. As I got into what we were using as a studio, and there was a full audience there as well watching the show being done, Debbie Munch, who was the head of, I suppose, production in the hotel, who she set up my radio shows, grabbed me hard, said, Morris, she heard you. Heard me? She heard him, our producer, calling her the N-word. So I immediately, she was getting ready to stand up. I immediately approached her and said, Martha, my God, Martha, like this. Martha, my God, Martha, I've been following you for years. I've watched you on TV. I've watched you many times. I've seen your photographs 100 times. Martha, you are a stunning looking woman compared to your photographs. What an amazing, amazing woman you are. And she sat down again. So she didn't know that I knew about the N-word was used. She sat down again and sort of smiled and sort of said, well, thank you very much. Phew. The embarrassment was finished. But that was a really horrible time. A horrible time. Another bit of a Morris embarrassing moment was when I brought Kid Creole and the Coconuts here for a charity do. I can't remember what the do was, but I remember it was in the, it was in Concepcion Gardens. No one knows what that is, but it's up behind Marbella. It's a beautiful outdoor space. Beautiful. Kid Creole. So Kid Creole was due on stage at midnight. So the Cars picked him and his Coconuts and whatever, the band, picked him up from their hotel, let's say at 11. So he's due on at 12. I was the host of the show. And we had a very well-known comedian on before him. He's probably listening to this and certainly remembers it. Well, I don't mind no, I'm not going to mention his name. It's not fair. Anyway, he's an Irish comedian. Well, let's call him Dave, because that's his first name. And he's on stage. He's hilarious, and he was going down really well. But Kid Creole is backstage, all the gear and the Coconuts, all there, short dress and all. And he comes to me at 5 to 12, and he said, Morris, we're due on stage in 5 minutes. Please make sure, sir, that we're on stage in 5 minutes, not a minute after. But this comedian has the audience in the palm of his hands, and they're laughing. But I was a little embarrassed because Kid Creole and the Coconuts are the star of the evening, and he's now kicking off like some sort of, I don't know, icon. I want to be on that stage at midnight. Well, at 1 minute to midnight, the comedian is still in full swing. So I walked on stage. He sort of looked at me and I grabbed him by the hand and I bowed, pulling him down, saying, get off the stage. Get off the stage. I'm talking about being embarrassed. And he stood up again like in shock. I said, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the great man himself, Dave thing. And he left the stage. And Kid Creole came on. I introduced Kid Creole. And ever since then, he always, when I phone him in Ireland, wherever, he goes, get off the stage. Get off the stage. But there wasn't very much more I could do about that. I'm telling you now. Another well, it was sort of embarrassing. I watched Brendan O'Carroll. You know who he is, Mrs. Brown. I watched him on the it was the Late Late. I think I told you this the other day. It was on the Late Late Show, the Irish Late Late Show. He was on last Saturday, a couple of days ago. And it reminded me when he was on my show. Mrs. Brown was one of the biggest things on television at the time. And I rang him. But before I put him on air, I said, Brendan, do me a favour. Don't swear. Please don't swear. As you know, he used the F word. And let me tell you, the feck word is Irish. I won't tell you any more. The Irish say feck. Feck that. Feck this. Feck this. What fecking time do you call that? You know, it's not an abusive word. Well, it's not. And so Brendan Carroll's on, and I said, Brendan O'Carroll, Mrs. Brown himself, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. He said, where are you? And he said, I tell you now where I am. I'm on the Naas dual carriageway. I left the house at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's now 9 o'clock in the evening here. And I have the kids in the car from 9 in the morning till right now. They're in the back of the car still. And now I know why animals eat their feckin' young. Oh, yeah, okay, thanks. No swearing, Brendan. No swearing, Brendan. I wasn't that embarrassed. I just telling you that maybe up a little there. So really, those are the sort of I'm trying to think back of embarrassing moments. There was an embarrassing moment in Canada. An embarrassing moment in Canada, when we were invited to Quebec to do the radio show there, and we were staying in a hotel. I really didn't have a clue. I was in the planning part of what guests to bring on my show, because Quebec, I was brought there by an insurance company, and there wasn't that many superstars, or if no stars around. So we had to sort of build a show from nothing, from no one, you know. In fact, one of the things I asked in that show, I remember I said, I want a band, but not a great band. And this band called the Late Bloomers, they were violinists, about 8 violinists. They were horrific, but I had them open my show every day because it was a laugh. But I'm in the hotel, and Wendy's with me, and I went down for breakfast. I've never seen like this. The hotel was like the Intercontinental type style. The whole dining room was full of Hell's Angels. In fact, it looked like a film set because they were all dressed exactly, beards, tattoos, leather jackets, Hell's Angels on the back. They looked like they were in costume for the part. This is more frightening than embarrassing. So I thought, that would be a great interview. Now, let me tell you why they're there. When I came to what was it called? Whatever, Lennoxville. That's where we were staying. When I came there the first day, I noticed that there was, going to where we to do the show, I noticed there was a tower on the hill, a tower, like a watchtower. And I asked the driver what that was. I couldn't believe it. And that's the Hells Angels headquarters of Quebec. And these people in the hotel were the Hells Angels of Toronto. There was a big meeting of the drug addicts. I mean, these were serious. These weren't people who like Harley Davidson. These were real Hells Angels, dangerous. So anyway, I said to Wendy, I'm going to ask, I'd love to interview one. That would be amazing. So remember, the dining room has got packed. It was packed. It was morning, packed. So one of them was paying, or was at the desk. And I went over to him. I said, hi, I'm from Radio Europe. I always had to say that because you start saying things like, the name, Onda Thera, they wouldn't understand. I'm from Radio Europe and I'd love to interview you. Well, with that, on a very loud voice, he started using his finger, poking me. He said, we don't like the media. And with that, the dining room went quiet. And they're all looking at me. And I must have gone snow white. Luckily, Wendy hadn't come down. She was up in the room. And he was poking me. We don't like media. You lie. You lie. And he was almost pushing me with his finger. And the whole dining room was silent. all I could do. I wanted to be swallowed up and leave that dining room. I was terrified. Anyway, luckily, I got out of there. And then when Wendy came down, we actually got a photograph of Wendy with one of the Hells Angels who was outside, which you'll see after this report. But that was more, as I say, I was embarrassed because the whole dining room, I thought it was going to be killed, but it was more scary. But as I just trying to check if there's any other embarrassing moments that I was going through. I'm sure there's a lot. I just can't remember them all. But anyway, thanks for joining me today. There were just some embarrassing moments. Maybe we'll have embarrassing moments part 2 when they come to mind. But thanks for joining us, and have a great evening or a great day wherever you are. Speak to you shortly.